My name is Jordan Valerian, and I'm part of a new school of engineers and producers. We don't need a perfect room or a locker full of boutique mics. We can make great records anywhere because we prove ourselves by the quality of our work and not the gear we have. I'm on a mission to help you learn from those who have made real records so you can master the tools and produce great music for yourself. I want to help you build a life around your passion and make it your job to make records. Welcome to the Studio Lounge Podcast. What's going on, everyone? Hopefully you are enjoying your morning or afternoon or night whenever you listen to these. It's Jordan here as usual. So a number of years ago, when I had finished engineering and producing the first Silverstein record, not their first record, but the first one I did with them, called Rescue, it ended up being mixed by Cameron Webb. I remember there was a time when I was talking to Cameron on the phone just about kind of mix notes and stuff and just about the tracks that I had sent. And, in a previous episode, you can go back and I talked about some mistakes I made during recording of that album, kind of being relatively young or new producer and engineer. One of them was I over-engineered the drums. We went to this really nice studio with a big mic selection. So I had like 3 mics on the kick, like 3 on the snare, and like multiple sets of room mics and stuff. I was talking to Cameron on the phone and he was like, oh yeah, I just muted that room track and that kick track. And I think he muted like 2 of the room tracks. And it kind of took me back at first, being a young engineer. I was kind of like, in my head, I didn't say this, but I was like, I set up those mics for a reason. Like, aren't they going to contribute to the sound? Like, can't you use those? I kind of mulled it over. And as I continued progressing in my own mixing career, I kind of took that message to heart. And I just found that like often we just try to make everything work. And, we end up with these like tiny little insignificant things in our mix that might be better off just being gone. So a couple examples of this, like one I can think of is drums. So let's say you have a weak drummer and they're just like, maybe their hits are very inconsistent or the drum sound just wasn't good. You just couldn't get a good drum tone out of the actual instrument itself or whatever it is. The live drums are sounding weak. You do your best to process and mix them and get them sounding punchy and good and everything, but it's just not working out. You start adding in samples and you're trying to blend them and you're trying to blend the samples. And then at some point in your mix, you just mute the live kick and the live snare and you just go with the samples. And it's like, oh, that sounds a lot cleaner, a lot better. There were times early on where I would ignore that and just like, I would still blend the live drum in there, even though it was technically worse than just going with the sample. But I found that as I matured and got better, when those situations came up, I just trained myself to automatically go with my gut and just like, sometimes you just got to go all the way with your mixing decisions. So that means, maybe you're trying to blend the live drums with the sampled kick or snare. Maybe it's better if you just mute the live drum and just go 100% with the sampled kick or snare. Like I have now done that many times. Don't get me wrong, I love to use as much of the live drum sound as possible. But when I'm mixing, if I'm trying to get a certain sound and the live drums, I'm just not getting it, then, it's gone. It's being replaced now. And I found often, as I talk a lot about just kind of less being more in a lot of different mixing scenarios, sometimes you just need to mute a track. And I often receive mixes that have a bunch of extra tracks and layers and stuff. And sometimes they're just almost duplicates of other things that already exist. Or maybe they're like me and they recorded like 5 pairs of room tracks, and I'm trying to mix them in. And like, if I put the fader up now and it doesn't add anything to the drum sound, then that track's going away. And I will actually completely just hide or delete it and just go with what's working. So this is something I think a lot of engineers fall prey to, is like trying to work something in the mix in a really like minor and subtle way when actually you might be better off just completely cutting it. So if you've got a room track or a guitar layer or like a vocal layer, or something in your mix that is like just barely tucked in there, like you've just got the fader like just barely up, it's way down, maybe you just need to go all the way, just cut it. If it's down so low that you can't even really notice it anyway, then just cut it, because it's just taking up, like, even if it's a very small amount, it's still taking up space in your mix. And if you do that across a bunch of tracks in your mix, then it's going to be making it worse, right? So if it's not making it better, then just cut it. Sometimes you just need to go all the way, hit the mute button, delete the track, completely replace, the sound with a sample, whatever it is. Practice ultra commitment, just going all the way. So if you notice you're just trying to do something just for the sake of doing it and it's actually not adding anything to the mix, but you feel weird about cutting it or whatever, just try it. Just go all the way. Cut the track. I've even heard, stories of mixers completely muting a part. Like if they think there's a lead guitar or a layer or a keys part or something that was sent to them to mix and they think it's really distracting from the overall mix, like it could actually be part of the mixing process to mute that track. And, I've actually done this to bands who've sent me mixes. Obviously, I'm not going to mute like a main line that's super obvious, but, I'll get like all these layers or whatever, and I might just, maybe I get like 5 different key synth sounds, and like, there's only one main sound that's really adding it, but they just stacked up a whole bunch of things just because they thought that would be bigger and better, and I end up just muting a bunch of them. And sometimes that turns out for the best, and they don't even notice that. So, little tip for you today: practice going all the way with your mix decisions. Be bold, make commitments, and try to stop doing these little wussy moves and kind of super subtle things that actually, if you're honest with yourself, are not making any difference. All right, happy mixing, guys. Talk to you later. If you want to go behind the curtain and learn the secrets that go into making real-world major label quality records, head over to makebetterrecords.com and join the email list to get my best exclusive free content. I've already helped tens of thousands of people start making better sounding records, start a business, and some have even quit their day jobs to go full-time in the studio. I want to do the same for you, and I don't hold anything back, so join us at makebetterrecords.com to get started.